to a whole new season of Symphony Preview. We're so glad another season is upon us, and with me today, as always, is music director of the Helena Symphony, Allan Scott. And we have a special guest today, the concertmaster who's been here before, Cepeda. We're here to talk about the first Masterworks concert of the season. It's September 17th, 7:30 Civic Center, and it's featuring some music that many of us have never heard and some other music that we've all loved for many years. So let's talk first about your solo performance with Eric Korngold's Violin Concerto.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about it and what to expect, what we should expect to see and hear when you perform it.
Korngold was a film composer, and so you probably have heard Korngold even though you don't know it. He did the score. He won actually Best Original Score for Robin Hood, Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn.
The original.
Yeah.
And the
so
best.
Hard to beat Errol Flynn, but
Yeah.
So he's considered by many to be one of the founders of that film music sound. You know, like I think there's, John Williams was influenced by Korngold a lot. So it's kind of the style that everyone really knows, I would think. And so it's in 3 movements, and Korngold actually uses themes from, I think, 4 of his movies. The first theme is from Another Dawn, and the second theme is from Juarez, which I should probably watch those. But
Yeah, but I read the list of the movies, and of course I recognize Robin Hood.
Sure.
But the others were, I think they're just old enough just to be a little bit out of our mental registry.
Right.
But now I want to see them because music is such a huge part of going to the cinema. Always has been.
Sure.
And I think there's a comment here about Korngold conceiving of film music as opera without words.
Right.
I don't know if I remember that correctly.
That's right.
Sure.
That's right. He said he didn't make the distinction between opera and film music. There just really was no distinction, and they're both there to carry a story. Other composers, like Stravinsky, for example, they really dismissed film music as sort of this. I think some people still do. They won't often consider film composers as legitimate as those for the concert hall. But when we did last October, we did a whole John Williams with some Brahms, and it wasn't really about the Star Wars itself. It was about the idea that he can tap into fate and the destiny, just like Brahms and so many other composers.
Yeah.
I think Korngold is, you wouldn't have had John Williams without Korngold. I mean, there's so many direct correlations.
So there's a tradition of this,
Max Steiner, who
Yeah.
wrote Gone with the Wind, he's another one. Bernard Herrmann, who wrote a lot of the Alfred Hitchcock films. These were the guys who, Franz Waxman, another one. These are the guys writing in the 30s and 40s when film was larger than life. You had to go to the cinema. There was no other way to catch it. And the enormous orchestrations. And John Williams is the one who really keeps current with that. Other composers will do all sorts of different things. But it comes out of the tradition that really Korngold did. I think because he embraced this lushness that so was not in vogue, like Schoenberg and Stravinsky and so many composers that were sort of going off the beaten path. He didn't embrace that. He rejected those ideas. So when Hollywood picked him up, it made sense. So he embraced it fully, and I think that's why we know who he is today, not just because of his violin concerto. I don't think you'd have had the violin concerto without all these film scores, because he ties them all in. In fact, there is a film, and I don't remember the name of the film, but it has the character in the movie. A cello concerto takes place in the movie, so he wrote a cello concerto for it.
Oh, awesome.
He was a virtuoso. I mean, this guy.
Yeah.
Pianist.
So he grew up in Vienna, correct? And he went to work for Warner Brothers. Did he become an American citizen, or?
He did eventually. I think in the 40s.
Right
After.
Almost, because I think he finished writing for films in the mid 40s. Right after, I think this is the first piece he wrote.
Right.
After his film scores, the violin concerto.
He wrote this in 45. I think that was the same year he became a citizen, and then it was premiered 2 years later, and if I could talk about that,
Yeah.
the artist who premiered it is probably my favorite violinist, Jascha Heifetz.
Oh, yes.
And so he, to him, that style was second nature, that movie style. And so actually another student Heifetz and Tasha Seidel studied with Leopold Auer, the same teacher, same class. And so Tasha Seidel played for all those old movies like Intermezzo. Anytime you hear that kind of schmaltzy violin playing, that's like,
Somebody
their style. That's
who
like
that
Tasha
is.
Seidel, or like Heifetz could have done those in the same way. So, Korngold was really excited that Heifetz was going to premiere his work, and it actually, the audience loved it, but critics even then thought it was like, as to what Allan was saying, was kind of too light of music, but it's just a phenomenal piece, really. But it's linked happily, because I always love that style of violin playing, to that rich, lush, schmaltzy, kind of movie, or Young Frankenstein even has that violin solo in it,
Yeah.
right? And so it's of that style, and
So
so it's glad that we keep that.
You've played this before.
I have not. This
No,
will
it's the
be a
first
new one
time.
for me.
So you're premiering, in a sense, your own
Yes,
performance
yeah.
of this wonderful work. Well, it's not unusual for me to admit that I have not heard it. So I'm going to be all ears and watching you carefully to see how you do it.
You said at the start of the show, you said that we're going to be hearing music that we're familiar with and music that we've never heard before. I think that both of those statements are true about the Korngold. We don't necessarily, Eric Korngold is not a household name, but you've heard this piece, maybe not in this
Right.
way,
So,
but you've
yeah.
heard this piece many ways. I mean, if you've ever seen any John Williams, you've heard this piece in a sense, because
Gotcha.
the language is very familiar to the American listener for sure. It sounds Hollywood. I mean, whenever I'm writing anything about it or talking about it, that's the first word that comes to mind. And it's a tearjerker. I mean, the second movement is maybe the heart of the piece, you could argue. I mean, it is just over the top, rich and lush, and everything you want. The last movement is a roller coaster ride. It's a virtuosity in terms of even just watching it, because there's a lot of notes very fast. And the first movement is monumental too. It's actually a difficult work for an orchestra too. There's a lot of dialogue between the orchestra and the soloist. So the orchestra has to really conjure up that flavor too. So it's a great work to open a season with, because it has all the makings of a blockbuster.
Yeah. Well, it sounds fantastic, and since it's the first half of the evening, people are going to be chomping at the bit to have you come back. Can you do that again, or something like that again? But okay, let's segue to the second piece after an intermission, as always. Rachmaninoff, another kind of like the tail end of the Romantic movement. Another fellow, if I read your notes correctly, who kind of resisted modernism, wasn't really a key to introducing the world to the next phase of music. He was kind of holding on to the rich, lush past. This is his second symphony?
His second symphony, and he really, I wouldn't even say he's tail end of Romanticism. He's a romantic, not during the Romantic period. I mean,
okay.
Romantic period starts, really the last one would be Mahler, more or less. And Mahler really is the bridge between sort of the Romantics into 20th century. If he would have lived past 50 years, Mahler would have been the first avant-garde composer for sure. He influenced Schoenberg and so many. And it was Mahler who actually met the young Korngold, just going back for a second, and said, this boy is a genius at a young age. So, and the violin concerto is dedicated to Mahler's wife. But Rachmaninoff is very similar in the sense that he doesn't embrace the modernist, but he definitely is born out of this Russian tradition of large symphonic works, operas, concertos, and his second symphony could be a film score. I mean, it is so lush. In fact, Stravinsky just said said Rachmaninoff is just nothing but a film composer. It was a derogatory term. He didn't mean it as a compliment, because these two pieces fit well. I mean, the Rachmaninoff, and this is a very meaty work. It's long, about 60 minutes long. It used to be done with cuts. that type of performance practices, I think, fizzled out a little bit. But I can't get enough of it, so I wouldn't want to cut a measure of it. It's just so wonderful. And again, the slow movement, the third movement, similar to the Korngold, it's so familiar. I think either Peter, Paul, and Mary or somebody used Rachmaninoff's theme in the 60s or 70s to some ballad, The Way We Were.
Huh.
That song, I can't remember who sings that. But these themes and ideas are so much ear candy that it's exciting. So I think Rachmaninoff complements the Korngold. I mean, Stefan won't be playing it, but because after the Korngold,
I was just about to ask, is he
but
resting in the back?
But I think a string player loves playing the Second Symphony. I mean, it's
If you like that style, so if you embrace that romanticism, which I love, you're gonna have a great time, and because it offers you a lot of that, and I love that style. So
yeah,
I
so
would
you'll
love to play
be
it.
behind the scenes,
I'll be missing
resting, maybe mimicking the movements, wishing you were on stage.
Yeah. I don't know. I might sit in.
Sometimes the solos will pop in the back of this section just to play through because it's this particular. I mean, it's a lot of notes. It's a difficult work too, but it's so rewarding because everybody sings in a true sense of the word. That everybody plays in a way in music. It's called cantabile, song-like, and it's so the winds have these incredible solos. The brass does. The strings get to just sing their heart out. And yeah, there's some technical challenges throughout too, but no great piece doesn't have that. So, but I'm looking forward to it.
Is this new to Helena, or have you conducted this in Helena before?
No, I've not conducted either of these work in Helena. I've done the Second Symphony, but not here, and that was almost 20 years ago. I've never done the Korngold myself, but the Korngold, I think in our history it shows whether that's a premiere or not. The Korngold, I'm certain, is a premiere for the Helena Symphony. Not sure about the Second Symphony off the top of my head in the 62 years we've been in existing. It's possible that it could have been done, but it hasn't been done this is my 14th year, so it hasn't been done in 14 years.
Yeah. You mentioned this is the 62nd season of the Helena Symphony, and if I recall correctly, this is the longest running performing arts organization in the capital city. So, there's a lot of history.
There is a lot of history
behind this concert.
14
all the way
music
back.
directors. That's a lot of music directors in 62 years. I feel lucky to be the longest serving one. And it's my 14th season. It's Stefan's 11th season. So we have built more of a more artistically stable organization I feel like we're starting to see some of the fruits of that.
Yeah.
When you have a team together, plays together more often, you can settle in a little bit more and have some consistency and grow together. And I think I'm starting to feel that, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. I'm starting to feel like, okay, we're more seasoned, literally, and it allows us to connect with works like this that create a sound, that lush sound we can get much easier, and still think about the ensemble. So it's exciting to be able to pull together 70, 75 players, and then of course when you have 100 singers with it, to make something, bring something to life. And I think it takes 6 decades or more to grow.
Yeah, like a fine wine.
It is.
Aging in the bottle.
I think it is. It is, and I think we have a great season planned. So between the 6 masterworks, 3 non-series, a bunch of education concerts, there really is something for everyone of different taste, and if you've never been to a symphony, even more so. There's so much there to experience, and we're really looking forward to it.
Are there still season tickets available?
Oh yeah. The one fortunate or maybe unfortunate thing is it's the largest concert hall in the state of Montana. It has 2,000, a little more than 2,000 seats. And so, we will have about 800 subscribers, and then the rest are single tickets. If you're a music student of any kind, private, studying an instrument or taking a music class in any age, your teacher has access to vouchers to give you a free ticket to almost every concert. That's a great way to
Yeah,
experience it
yeah,
too. But
fabulous.
ticket prices are reasonable, and student prices are always 30% off any ticket, and so we try to make it so nearly anyone can come to
Right.
the Helena Symphony.
I mean, I think if I were a Carroll College student from here or anywhere, this would be like this wonderful opportunity waiting to be had.
And there is that. Carroll will often partner with us, and they'll bring groups, and I know they make it available as one of their student activities on their calendar. So there's so much to do, and there's so many different concerts to check out. And when you subscribe, you save a lot more money to get the 6 main. And you get all these perks. Get to come to a opening night reception afterwards, champagne and chocolate reception, and you get keep your seats, which is a big deal. You get discounts. You get the pre-concert crash course with the guest artist and me. And you get some program notes in advance. So you get a bunch of perks when you subscribe.
You're speaking directly to my own personal experience, thanks to you, largely. I mean, I've lived all these things you just said, and they're all fantastic. It is just a rich experience to be had in our little city out here in the West. We have just a couple minutes left. Are you in rehearsal now? I mean, it's coming up soon. You must be.
We always
practicing.
start, depending on when this is being viewed, we start 1 week prior or 3 days prior, depending on the schedule. So the max amount of rehearsals, this orchestra, it's a regional professional orchestra, so the openings are advertised throughout Idaho, Wyoming, throughout Montana. The auditions are blind. We just had someone get a tenured position in the cello section from San Francisco who's moving here. So it's a professional orchestra. So there's a lot of demands put on them very quickly. So the most that the orchestra rehearses 5 times this Saturday beforehand. They would do 2 on that Saturday beforehand, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday the day of. That's the most we get. And usually for opening night, I try to get back up, because we've been off for about 7 weeks. Because since Symphony of Stars, it's our biggest gap of time. And so, but sometimes it's just Thursday, Friday, Saturday, depending on the schedule.
Yeah.
So
we have rehearsed the Korngold several times with piano.
right, we've gotten together a few times and rehearsed, going through it, talk about it, go through it, and that's a great advantage when you have the soloist here, and having a concertmaster who is part of Stefan's contract that every other year he does do a concerto, and he's the only concertmaster in Montana that has that, and so when we looked for that to fill that position 12 years ago, that's what we were looking for, someone who wants to and has the ability to be a soloist and also love orchestral music to be the quarterback of the team.
Yeah. Well, I have to say we're so pleased that you're here. Once again, a great evening to look forward to on September 17th at the Civic Center, 7:30, and you're going to be up in front first off with this fabulous movie music that, as you say, we'll probably recognize immediately. Not sure why, but it'll be there. And then finish with Rachmaninoff Second Symphony. Wonderful evening. So thank you, Stefan, for being here today, and thank you as always, Allan, for joining us. We will see everyone at the Symphony.